Alright, man, welcome back to another Her Nature Reaction. Today we got the traumatizing reality of being an ant. Like always, we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to get right into this one, man. He just yeets himself.
Life?
What the fuck is that?
Kind of sucks. Don't get me wrong, the gift of life
Really
is a beautiful thing and all that, but then again, none of us really asked to be here, and then one day you gain consciousness, minor character development followed, and before you could blink twice, you got student loans, a job, and taxes. All that aside, though,
Why you gotta break it down like that? He's being real and true.
actually have it pretty good. I mean, we could be ants, because in the game of life, ants have some of the most creatively cruel game overs of any animal. To be fair, ants do have a lot going for them. They take the whole strength in numbers thing and put it on steroids, resulting in a eusocial insect able to weaponize its community to take down threats.
Ants are so badass too.
Hundreds of times its size, like an angry Twitter mob. The all-for-one mentality is how ants have managed to stay in the game for well over 100 million years, with today over 12,000 flavors of them seasoning virtually every part of the earth that isn't Antarctica. The problem with being so ancient is that your neighbors have had that much time to evolve around your existence, which often involves using the ants' own habits and traits against them, and trust me, you're gonna see just how ridiculous some animals got with it. Plenty of animals' grocery lists have ants on it. It'd be virtually impossible to list all of them, but here are some of the most memorable for us and traumatizing for the ants. For example, this is an ant graveyard, and most ants don't find out till it's too late. That's because the ant line is the equivalent of a Call of Duty camper that digs a funnel-shaped crater in the sand and then hides in the center of it, completely invisible to the rest of the world. All it takes
What a scumbag, dude.
is one ant to step into the death trap to get sent sliding into the center. And with the shifting sands and the ant line tracking the ant through vibrations and actively flicking up sand, the harder the ant tries to struggle, the further it slides into the pit. Directly into the snare trap. And considering some ant lines can spend years in a stakeout, once they do grab the ant, they waste little time injecting it with venom to paralyze.
Wait, years? In a stakeout? Hello?
Ant lions can spend years in a stakeout. Once they do grab the ant, they waste little time injecting it with venom to paralyze it, along with enzymes to digest it from the literal inside out. Which is when the ant gets its actual life essence.
Dude, it's like that sand pit from Star Wars.
Sucked from it by the ant lion drinking its liquefied insides. And once the ant serves no further purpose, the ant lion yeets the violated corpse out the trap like an empty Capri Sun and then goes back into its homicide hovel to wait to feed on the next ant's mistake. And if that process sounds familiar, it's cause this is bar for bar what the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars was inspired by.
Oh my god, it's the exact that's literally exactly what I was talking about. Holy shit.
The worst part is, even if
that's fucking wild.
the ant manages to struggle up one side
it's
of the
actually
pit,
wild.
Jabba will throw up sand from the center, causing the sand around it to collapse, along with the meal-prepped ant with it. A camping tremor isn't the ant's only paralysis demon.
Dude!
Thaspis patax is an assassin bug that also murks anything ant for a living. Like the ant lion, that involves administering tissue-melting toxins and then slurping the life out of it. But they don't just toss out the used and abused ant carcass when they're done. The nymph gathers the soul-evacuated bodies of its victims and then wears it like a jacket.
Yo,
this corpse
what?
helps the assassin bug carry on its ant onslaught while camouflaging it so it too doesn't get put on a t-shirt. This is the first example of what I said about animals using the ant's habits against them. The spiders that the nymph normally would have to worry about also don't want smoke with an angry ant mafia. So scientists believe that cosplaying as an ant army keeps the underage assassin bug alive long enough to reach its adult form, when they don't need a carcass scarf to survive. But it also means that an ant's entire existence can really come down to being a part of some assassin's ensemble. I only listed two. It gets so much worse. Forward flies are one of the biggest obstacles to an ant's pursuit of happiness, to the point where the United States tried to weaponize the flies against them.
Wait,
the nightmare starts when a forward fly, which can be easily mistaken for a fruit fly, penetrates the thorax of the ant and then leaves behind an egg and then just takes off like only a destructive deadbeat can.
Oh my god, and then the egg just fucking... It literally kills it from the inside, huh? The egg probably turns into larva, and then it just eats
this doesn't kill the ant.
from the inside.
The events that follow make it wish it did. Because once the egg hatches, it migrates to the ant's head where it begins eating it from the inside. The victimized ant is alive for all this, but seemingly goes into a catatonic state. After a couple weeks, we're basically talking about a zombie ant getting its vessel carjacked by the fly larva. That's not hyperbole. The larva devours the ant's brain in its last chance of free will and then forces the self-imprisoned ant to just wander around aimlessly. Eventually, the larva manages to guide...
Wait, so the ant still moves around with no brain, bro? What?
The ant's ideal nursery grounds, that being some leaf litter or a crack in the soil. And in its final act, and after weeks of pretty much being locked in the sunken place, the ant's head literally divorces the rest of its body.
Oh my god, dude, that's wild.
Enzymes that destroy the very membranes keeping
it's actually wild as fuck.
It spends a little more time using the disembodied head as a crib before it pupates and crawls out the long past tense ant's mouth. It's a fate that would violate the Geneva Convention, but since insects have very little rights, the United States have been trying to use forward flies in the fight against fire ants. Fire ants that were accidentally Ubered immigrated into the American Southwest in the 1930s from Brazil and have proceeded to spread worse than a TikTok trend. So scientists have imported forward flies as the most brutal form of population control for the fire ants that really didn't ask to be here in the first place. And apparently, the flies only subtract a small portion of the fire ants, but the threat of them drastically disrupts the colony's activities and forces them to retreat underground. To be fair, you'd be a whole lot less productive if you witnessed your neighbor's head fall off and a whole alien crawl out. On one hand,
that
weaponizing
thing was
flies
so fucking gross looking, man.
probably less destructive than mass-breathing pesticides like DDT.
Nasty,
But on
dude.
the other, playing God with a mind-controlling, brain-eating parasite can't possibly have a good ending. But either way, it's another example of an animal that's tailored its entire existence around griefing ants. And it's not the only fly that's learned how to hoe ants for a living. Ants do this thing where they actually, hold on a second. Okay, we're good. Ants often do this thing where they'll feed another ant by regurgitating into the mouth of the receiver. Oh yeah, it's nasty, but not only are they sharing food, but ants like carpenter ants transfer proteins to help boost disease resistance and overall colony immunity. Enter the flies. One species of South African fly figured out the signal one ant will use on its donor to initiate the food transfer. So the flies come in and use the signal touching the mouth region of the ant to force it to give up its food. And as smart as they allegedly are, the ants
Dude, what? Fucking papega, bro. What an absolute papega ass ant. Don't even look the same.
aren't smart enough to realize they're getting fleeced out of food by a fly.
Yeah.
Which is probably how they got the nickname the ant-mugging fly. Like I said,
Dude,
hundreds
what?
of millions of years is a lot of time for your ops to study your playbook and use it against you. Because when
Real and
ants
true,
aren't getting
Jesus.
trapdoored by ant lions, finessed by flies, or turned into a light flex by an assassin, ants are often the victim of some of the most complex manipulation in the entire animal kingdom. One example is how this entire butterfly's existence depends solely on deceiving ants.
That's
the
a
Alcon
butterfly?
blue butterfly has no weapons, no venom, no armor at all. But what they do have
Wait, it's
are
blue? There's no
pheromones
shot
that
it's
are
actually
almost
blue.
identical to that produced by ant larvae. So when the caterpillar airdrops itself down to the forest floor, it's almost immediately taken in by a colony of ants. By mimicking the
Bruh.
ant equivalent of a new baby smell, the caterpillar manages to get VIP treatment from the same ants that could turn it into coffin stuffing. The ants
Dude.
carry it into their nest where they feed the caterpillar like one of their own. To the point where if there's ever a food shortage, the intruder manages to savvy its way into getting priority over their actual young. Especially since the caterpillar is able to mimic the sound the ant queen makes in order to get more attention.
Dude,
and I get that it
what?
took millions of years of trial and error to get it right. That is some wild commitment.
Yeah, that's fucking insane, bro. Oh my god. That's literally, that takes, going undercover to a whole new level, bro. Holy
Alcon
shit.
maintains the fraud for 2 years until one day it pupates and flies out the ant nursery with the ants unaware of just how hard they got played. This game plan works out so well for the butterfly that even one of the
Wait, he doesn't even eat the ants? He literally just uses them so he can hatch and then leaves? Bro, what? Go back.
Alcon maintains the fraud for 2 years until one day it pupates and flies out the ant nursery with the ants unaware of just
Bro, 2 years? There's no way a baby ant takes 2 years to be made. You would think that some of these ants would be like, hey, this baby been here for like a year and a half now, man. Like, all these fucking other ones come and go. Why is this motherfucker still here? But nah, they're not educated.
how hard they got played. This game plan works out so well for the butterfly that even one of the slowest animals on Earth takes a cue from them and pulls a fast one on ants. Ants love eating snail slime. I want you to remember that piece of information. It's going to be real important later. But one
Okay.
species of snail will purposely secrete slime in order to attract the ants who kidnap it and carry it into their nest. Since most ants will 100% eat a snail alive, at first this looks like self-subtraction with extra steps. But once carried into the ant fortress, the snail suddenly stops releasing the slime that got it there in the first place. And somehow not being seen as food gives the snail diplomatic immunity, and they're able to move around the nest untouched and even feed on the groceries the ants bring in while contributing a total of nothing.
What the fuck? How does that even... Dude, nature's wild at the small level, man. When you get down to like ant size, nature is wild,
That
bro.
got it there
What?
in the first place. And somehow not being seen as food gives the snail diplomatic immunity, and they're
How
able to
does
move
that
around the
even
nest
make
untouched and
sense?
even feed on the groceries the ants bring in while contributing a total of nothing. But at least with the Alcon Blue and the snail, technically no one really gets hurt. But one animal manages to not only completely manipulate its ant mark, it does it in one of the most ridiculously complicated ways possible. Go get a snack if you don't have one. This finna be a novel.
Go get a snack, a drink, and or a motherfucking cone to smoke.
The
man.
jihad starts with a parasitic flatworm that enslaves
Okay,
the ant
this
through
is-
mind control. You see the pattern here, right?
Bro,
Completely against its will, the ant is forced by the flatworm shacking up in its brain to climb up a flower or stem and clamp its jaws around the tip of the stem, where it can wait for up to 2 months. Wait for what exactly? Basically for an animal that eats grass to come in and take the zombie ant with it. End of the road for the ant, but the parasite manages to make its way into the liver of its new host, which is probably why the flatworm is called
Fuck no, dude. Parasites are sketch. Fuck that. Dude, we're talking about, just so we're 100% clear here, chat. We're talking about a thing that you cannot see, right? That goes into another thing of something you can barely see, right? And then takes over that thing's brain, moves it up into the top of the grass so then a big thing can bite it and then it can go into that. That's fucking terrifying, bro. Hell no. No, no, no.
Called the liver fluke.
No.
And if you think getting lodged inside a cow's liver is a dead end, then you must not have believed me when I told you how needlessly complicated this stuff gets.
Yeah, I guarantee that, like, that thing, its end goal is probably just to make it to humans. I
While
guarantee.
feeding on whatever cow, sheep, or rabbit unintentionally murked the ant, the fluke lays eggs that then get deuced out by the same host. Those eggs don't get to hatch until a snail comes along and eats the droppings, along with the eggs in them. And it's while getting taxied by host number 3 that the eggs hatch and proceed to irritate the snail to the point where they get ejected, along with a good amount of snail slime. You remember what I said about snail snot and who?
Oh my god, and it's literally a never-ending cycle. Because then the ants come around, boom, get the slime, boom, now they're infected with the parasite again, boom, 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 boom. They're just going in circles.
Likes to eat it, and it's once an ant feeds on the contaminated, parasite-loaded goop that this vicious cycle restarts itself.
Dude,
Pretty much the
holy
liver fluke's
shit.
life cycle looks more like a Family Guy cutaway, but instead of Meg,
So it's not trying to get to humans at all. It's just
the biggest
literally
casualty
running.
in all of this is an
That's
ant
so
that thought
wild.
it scored an easy meal, but instead gets turned into an easy lick. And I know what you're thinking, and yes, there's a fungus that does the exact same thing. Ants lived through The Last of Us firsthand when a cordyceps fungus infects an ant.
Bro, I might just be like a little high, but like, we not gonna talk about how the snail just carries his home around with him? Like, no other animal just walks around with their house on their fucking back, son. Just like, yeah, like this is the only animal that moves around in a mobile home, bro. That's wild.
Does the exact same thing. Ants live through The Last of Us firsthand when a cordyceps fungus infects an ant, robs it of its life choices, and then forces its new vessel to climb up high enough until it makes it clamp its vice grip jaws around a stem, and then it just stands there waiting for the sweet release of perma-sleep. And once the ant becomes a was, its withered body becomes ground zero as the fungus proceeds to explode out of it, with the fruity
Dude,
body
what
growing out of the
the fuck?
decommissioned ant's head. And from there, it spits out spores in order to continue the cycle of completely desecrating the ant's way of life. So as you can see, there are many obstacles to an ant's very existence. Taxes don't seem too bad now, huh? But by far, the biggest threat to ant survival are other ants. Ants regularly commit acts of war against other colonies, and the outcome
Dude,
is just as horrific as you'd
this
think.
is
Apart
wild.
from the mass slaughterings, ants regularly participate in slavery. When ants like the red formica raid enemy nests, it's not enough for them to red rum any adults that try to slow them down. They'll make off with as much of the victim colony's larvae as possible. In a season, they can abduct thousands. Back at the kidnapper's home base, the stolen children are born with no way of knowing how they got there and are conditioned to serve the colony that massacred their family.
Dude,
the kidnapped are
holy
made to do
fucking
tasks such as
shit.
maintain the nest, go out and search for food, and even look after the next generation of baby snatchers. They'll even do that weird food transfer vomity thing I told you about to feed their own captors. But don't think for a second that the kidnappers get off scot-free. Eventually, the enslaved turn on their kidnappers by hitting them where it hurts the most. A good
Killing
number
the
of the
babies.
slave maker ant pupae get murked by the same slave
Yeah.
workers that were supposed to be looking after them.
Yeah.
This get back can delete more than half the colony's children before they finish the pupal
Ooh.
stage and become adults. And in
Damn.
some cases, up to
Wait, that just means eradication for the colony,
two-thirds
right?
of the slaver's offspring get relieved from life. I've made this joke before, but that's Django Unchained levels of get back, which is why another ant figured out a safer way of griefing their ops. The Solenopsis deguaria of South America is another parasite whose queen will
That's
infiltrate the nest of,
fucking
for example,
terrifying
red
looking.
fire ants. And instead of immediately turning the queen into a hashtag, the parasite instead steals the food intended for her, which pretty much kills the actual queen slowly. And while that's happening, the parasite queen starts spawning eggs, which the workers unknowingly take care of.
Oh
and once
my
her
God,
children
and
are
those
developed and
are-
ready, they fly off like a virus to infect even more colonies.
Jesus.
The Solenopsis is such a menace that, just like with forward flies, this parasite has been used to nerf the red fire ants that have become invasive in some places. And at
Ew,
this
is it
point,
just biting that?
it's pretty clear that the ant's entire purpose is to serve the colony and by extension the queen. This means that some ants have essentially sold their souls for the ant kingdom's best interests. Soldier ants are so geared for war and nothing else that they physically can't feed themselves, and without worker ants to mama bird them, they'd starve. The
Dude, that's
cephalotes spend
wild.
evolution points on a head wide enough to block entrances to their nest from intruders. Pretty dope until you realize their entire life's purpose comes down to just being a living door. All this to protect the queen who would want
Fuck, man. That that was cool until he pointed out the fact that that guy's literally just a door, dude.
100% throw her colony under the bus if it benefits her. That's not speaking hypothetically either. Queen ants have been known to backdoor their own colony. Many ant colonies have more than one
like,
queen,
betray?
which on paper should be a good thing, since more queens means more workers, means better chance
So
for the
like,
colony
betray
to
each
prosper.
other?
The problem is the small but very real chance that the workers turn on the extra queens and take them out of power. Permanently. Queen ants seem to know this, so sometimes they'll try to be slick and purposely produce less eggs so that they can save their energy fighting off any disobedient subordinates if it ever gets to that point.
Damn,
the
dude.
caveat is producing less eggs and therefore less workers actually hurts the colony overall, even if it helps the one queen. The problem is the workers know it, and they can sense how fertile a queen is based on chemicals. So if the worker ants suspect that one of the queens is holding out on them, it's curtains for her. And politics
send
means
a
if the ant queen
merker.
gets too selfish, she gets executed. But become too much of a team player with other queens in power, and the queen ant becomes completely defenseless in the case of a mutiny, since the process of making so many eggs means she doesn't have any energy left to defend herself. But no ant pays a higher price for being a team player than a species found in Southeast Asia. These ants don't have huge mandibles or stingers, but when their colony is under attack, then you see exactly why they were named Colobopsis explodens. They have huge glands under their abdomen, and as a
Oh my god, these are the ants that fucking suicide bomb
last resort,
themselves.
they'll force the glands to
They
burst and cause
suicide.
themselves to explode.
This
act
wild.
of self-subtraction coats the enemy in this toxic, sticky glue.
Dude, this is so fucking wild, dude. Oh my god, ants are insane, man.
Like gunk that traps
Holy
the attackers
shit.
while also poisoning them. The ants kamikaze themselves, but they do it for the good of the colony. And this isn't even the only way ants will voluntarily cross themselves off the census. There's a species of Brazilian ant that'll seal the entrance to their nest every night to keep possible threats out.
That's
the problem
cool.
is, they use actual living ants to close the entrance from the outside. And with no way to get back in, a few brave worker ants spend the night outside the safety of the nest.
Tell
and
my
become
story.
past tense by the time the nest is opened again in the morning. But at least when these ants sign their own obituary,
Oh, so it's like a night in the maze from the Maze Runner. It's like, you gotta get back or else you don't survive.
it's by choice and for a purpose. There is no choice or purpose to what's happening here. Two
What
things to
is
know
going
about
on?
army ants. Number one, they're nomads. They don't make a permanent settled down nest and are constantly on the move. Number two is that army ants are essentially blind and rely on pheromones to get around. An ant mill like this happens when a small party of ants gets separated from the rest of the foraging group, and while lost they begin to start following each other. And with no way of knowing they're going in an endless circle, you see exactly why this has been called the
Bro, that is fucking terrifying.
death spiral. They just keep going until they eventually pass tense to pure exhaustion. And not all ant mills are this small. One of the first death spirals ever seen was about 1,200 feet across.
Bro,
for
what?
the Americans, that's about 365 meters. And for the Americans with no concept of distance like me, that's
Yeah.
more than 3 football fields. And
Thank
apparently
you.
it took each ant 2.5
Holy
hours
shit.
just to complete one lap. And out of all the disturbing ways ants
Dude, oh my god, they're just going in a giant circle.
get
That's
logged out
wild.
of life, this might be the worst one. Mindlessly marching in a circle, blindly following the guy in front of you until your number eventually gets called.
Yeah, that's
it's the worst
insane,
one
man.
because for some people, it's the most relatable. And on that note, that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you go
No.
outside and do something you wouldn't normally do. Break out of the rut any chance you can. Because the thing about a death spiral is, you may not realize you're in it until it's too late. See you on the next one.
Fuck, real and true, man. I should go out and do something, but like, I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Damn, what a fucking absolute banger, man. Hey, yo, make sure to go subscribe to Casual Geographic, yeah, if you haven't already. God damn, man, dude, I'm so glad I'm not a fucking ant. Holy shit, that really put that into perspective. And ants are badass as fuck. They got a lot of different things going. That's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool.